Today we're going to walk through building an SOP for accounts payable for a client, okay? So we have a fictitious scenario and we have our handy worksheet number 3A, and we're going to walk you through each Maven Systems Station to build the SOP using this worksheet. Okay, so our story today leaves our client on COD after missing multiple payment deadlines. Now, that's cash on delivery, in case you didn't know. And the client cannot place another order unless they pay immediately. So they're going to have to pay all future orders in cash on delivery. And that may delay materials, and it might delay a customer's job, and it might even stop the business from completing work that it's already working on and in the middle of and has promised. So the owner calls you, the bookkeeper, the Maven, and says, hey, can you help me fix this? So now, of course, you can get the overdue bill paid, but that's only fixing today's problem. And a Maven asks way better questions like, how did this bill get missed, and how can we keep it from happening again? That's what we're going to do today. So we're going to take a typical weekly accounts payable process and build it into a viable SOP using our Maven system. Now, accounts payable simply means the bills the business owes. We will use Maven's SOP planning worksheet 3A. And before we write a single step in the final SOP, we're going to stop at all Maven Systems Stations and ask the questions that make this process work. Now, this is a small business, our fictitious company, maybe 5 employees, and the Maven, you, may be the only bookkeeper. The business owner may be the only person who can approve the payments. We're not trying to build a whole giant corporate accounting department here. We're building just a simple system that real people in real situations can actually follow. All right, first, let's determine what actually went wrong, because we have to diagnose before we prescribe, right? So what actually went wrong? We know a vendor was paid late, but we don't know why. Did the vendor email the bill to the owner? Did the owner forward it to the bookkeeper? Did an employee leave it in their truck? Was it sent to an old email address? Was it entered but never approved? Did the owner think the bookkeeper had paid it? Did the bookkeeper think the owner wanted to hold it? Was there not enough money in the bank? Or does the business simply pay bills whenever someone remembers to do it? We can't fix the process until we understand where it failed. This is why we do not start writing step 1, enter the bills, when we create SOPs. No. Great standard operating procedures are not written first. They're thought through first. And that's the purpose of Worksheet 3A. And the first thing you'll likely notice is that you'll need more space. Okay, so this is an outline sheet. So feel free to expand it, this worksheet, into whatever size you need to accommodate your notes. I know with my handwriting is way too big for this, and so is my typing in all likelihood, but this is your framework. All right. Section 1 is our SOP identification. Okay, so first we're going to name our standard operating procedure, and I'm going to call it Weekly Bill Review and Payment Process, because I like to use plain old English regular language when I'm doing this, because accounts payable is technically correct, but everyone in the business can understand what you mean when you call it bill review and payment. Okay, there's no gray area there. The department is bookkeeping, the business function is paying vendor bills, and the process owner is you, the Maven bookkeeper. Now, I have a lot of clients that I do advisory for that actually have in-house full-time bookkeepers, and so you both may play a role, you and a full-time bookkeeper, but for today, you're the Maven bookkeeper. All right, so subsequently, you are responsible for keeping this weekly process moving. Now, that doesn't mean that you decide how the owner spends the company's money. It means that you make sure the bills are collected, entered, reviewed, approved, and handled every single week. So, back to our form, the date this created was today. We're creating our SOP today. It's version 1, and it's going to be reviewed by the business owner. The review date, we'll review the process after using it for 4 weeks. And after we know it works, then we can review it once a year whenever something important changes. The related SOPs section. Now, this is where we list other SOPs that may connect to this one once we get settled. And that would be maybe we need a standard procedure for adding a new vendor, changing a vendor payment or their information type, collecting employee receipts, reviewing cash flow, and reconciling the bank account. This business may not have those SOPs even in place yet, and that's okay. We don't need to build everything entirely all together in one day. We're just solving one real problem with one useful standard operating procedure today. All right, section 2 on our form is the purpose. Now we answer the biggest question: why does this SOP even exist? And it does not exist because somebody told us that every business should have a standard operating procedure for accounts payable, although that certainly is very valid and true. It exists because bills are missing, vendors are being paid late, and the client's business is being affected because, remember, now they're on COD. So, on our form, why does this SOP exist? To make sure vendor bills are collected, entered, reviewed, approved, and paid on time every single week. What problem does it solve? It prevents bills from getting lost, forgotten, entered twice, or paid late. It also prevents confusion between the owner, the employees, and you, the bookkeeper. What should happen when the SOP is followed? Every bill received by the weekly deadline should end up in one of two places. It's either approved and scheduled for payment, or it's placed in a short problems list with a reason that it cannot be paid yet. Maybe the owner wants to wait, maybe the bill is wrong, maybe the business is short on cash, maybe information is missing. The bill doesn't have to be paid just because it was received, but it cannot disappear. This is to prevent that. All right, and also in that section, how does this SOP help the business? It protects the vendor relationships, it reduces late fees, it helps the owner see what money is going out, it prevents last-minute payment emergencies, and it reduces the chances that an important vendor will place your business or your client's business on COD ever again. That's our purpose. All right, now that we've gone through the first 2 sections, we're ready to visit all 10 of our stations. So now we're going to head to the Maven Systems filter, and this is where we're going to stop at those 10 stations, and they're all on your worksheet here, okay? Station 1. The first station is role. Who does what? This is a small business, so it can be really, really simple. The bookkeeper, again, that's you, collects and enters the bills, checks the details, and prepares the weekly list. The business owner decides what gets paid. Employees might be responsible for submitting any bills or receipts that they've received or collected during the week, and that may be the entire team. So we don't necessarily have to include a whole lot of other people. So on our worksheet, this is what we're going to write. Under role, number 1, who performs the work? The Maven bookkeeper. Who owns the result? The Maven bookkeeper keeps the weekly process moving and makes sure every bill is handled. Who approves it? The business owner approves which bill will be paid. We've now answered a question that causes trouble in most small businesses, which is who was supposed to take care of that? No guessing. The employee submits it, the Maven prepares it, the owner approves it. Station 2, expectations. Now we decide what done looks like and decide how we're going to measure that we've arrived at done. So telling someone to take care of the bills isn't really enough. How do we know the weekly process is complete? Every bill received by the deadline has been entered. The amount and due date have been checked. The Maven has looked for possible duplicate bills. The owner has received one clear list of bills to review. The owner has approved the bills to be paid. The approved payments have been scheduled or made, and any unpaid or questionable bill appears on the problems list. And how do we measure the success? The business will have fewer late payments, fewer late fees, no duplicate payments, no bills paid without owner approval, fewer vendor complaints, and no bills sitting unnoticed in an inbox or on somebody's desk. So on our Form 3A, this is what we write. What does success look like? Every bill received by the deadline is either approved for payment or placed on the problem list. How is the quality measured? No lost bills, duplicate payments, unapproved payments, or avoidable late fees. What standards must be met? The bill must be complete, entered correctly, and approved before payment. We know exactly what needs to be done, and we know what done means. Station 3 is intake. Intake is how something enters the process. This is probably where most small businesses' AP problems actually start. Bills may arrive through a variety of different channels. Email, snail mail, vendor website, text message, an employee, a business owner. Maybe it's inside the box delivered with the supplies. Maybe it's on a piece of paper that someone left in their truck. The Maven cannot manage the process when the bills are hiding in 6 different places. So we need one simple rule. All bills go to one place. Now that might be a bookkeeping email address. It might be a shared folder. It might be the document area inside of Maven PMP. Check that out, by the way. The exact place can change from business to business, but every employee and every owner needs to know where the bills go. What starts the weekly process? For our example, the weekly deadline will be Tuesday at noon. Anything received by Tuesday at noon is reviewed for this week's payment list. And what information do we need? Vendor name, we need the actual bill or invoice, amount, due date, what was purchased, got to know how to classify that, who purchased it, was that even approved, different process altogether, any receipt or other reporting documents, and any questions or problems that an employee already knows might exist. So what must happen before the process begins? Employees and the owner have to send their bills to the correct place by Tuesday at noon. So on our form, we write, what triggers the process? The Tuesday noon deadline. What information is required? The complete bill, amount, due date, purchase details, and any supporting information. What must already be completed? The owner and employees must submit their bills to the approved location. We now have created one front door for the process, and that alone is going to prevent a lot of bills from getting lost. All right, station 4 is timing. Saying the bills are handled weekly is not enough. We need a simple weekly rhythm. And so here's our example. By Tuesday at noon, the owner and the employees submit their bills. Tuesday afternoon and into Wednesday morning, the Maven reviews and enters the bills. The Maven also checks, is this bill ready? Is this bill already in the accounting system? Is the amount correct? When is it due? Is anything missing? Is there a problem with it? Does it need to be paid before the next week's payment day? Then by Wednesday afternoon, the Maven sends the owner one weekly payment list. Now, it can be an aging list or it can be part of your aging list. But that list is going to show who needs to be paid, what's owed, when each bill is due. You may, as the Maven, make recommendations. Maybe you have information that is important to the owner to know, as well as any questions or problems. Then by Thursday at noon, the owner approves the bills to be paid. By Thursday afternoon or Friday, you, the Maven, schedule the payments or make the approved payments based on the arrangements with the client. So on our worksheet, we write, when does this process begin? Tuesday at noon. How often does it occur? Once each week. What are the deadlines? Maven send the payment list Wednesday afternoon. Owner approves by Thursday at noon. Approved bills are scheduled to be paid by Friday. What does the process depend on? The bills must be submitted on time and the owner must approve the payment list on time. Now everyone knows when something happens. The business is no longer paying bills whenever someone just happens to remember. All right, station 5 is boundaries. Boundaries tell us where the process starts, where it ends, and what is not included. Where does this SOP begin? It begins when the complete bill is sent to the approval bill location. When does it end? It ends when the bill is approved and scheduled for payment, paid according to the client's process, or placed on the problem list with a reason and a next step. What is outside this SOP? All right, these are the things that the SOP does not include, all right? And there are a lot of them, like deciding whether the business should make a purchase in the first place, adding a new vendor, changing a vendor's banking information, paying employees or reimbursing them. This has nothing to do with payroll or sales tax. It has nothing to do with paying the company credit card or solving a disagreement with a vendor. Those items may need their own processes. And we're also going to need a few clear safety boundaries, like the Maven does not pay the bills without the owner's approval. The Maven does not change a vendor payment information based only on an email. And the Maven does not decide which bills to skip when the money is tight. Those are all up to the owner. And bills submitted after Tuesday at noon may have to wait until the following week unless they are truly urgent. So on our worksheet, where does this SOP begin? When a complete bill is sent to the approved location. When does it end? when the bill is approved and scheduled for payment or added to the problem list. What is outside this SOP? New vendors, new vendor banking changes, purchasing decisions, everything to do with payroll, taxes, credit cards, reimbursements, and vendor disputes. None of that is included. And these boundaries are to protect the business owner, and they also protect you as the Maven bookkeeper. All right, station 6 is escalation. Escalation answers this question: what the hell do we do when something goes wrong? A useful SOP cannot only explain what happens on a perfect week. It's got to tell the Maven what to do when real life happens. The Maven, and again, that's you, should contact the owner when there's not enough money to pay the bills, a bill is already late, a vendor has placed the business on hold or COD, a bill looks like a duplicate, the amount looks unusually high, the bill does not match what the business expected, important information is missing, a vendor asks to change payment information, the Maven suspects fraud, any important bill is due before the next payment day, and the owner has not approved the payment list by the deadline. How urgent is the problem? Not everything is an emergency. That's huge. A missing description might go on the problem list. A suspicious banking change should be brought to the owner's attention. A vendor threatening to stop a job may require a phone call, text, or following up by written notes. So, on our sheet, we write, what situations require escalation? Not enough cash, late bills, COD notices, missing information, duplicate bills, unusual amounts, changed payment instructions, possible fraud, urgent due dates, and missing owner payroll. Now, again, you're going to need a lot more room than this. All right, what could happen if the issue is ignored? The business could lose money, pay the wrong bill, damage a vendor relationship, and that's really important, or interrupt its work. Who should be contacted? The business owner. How is the problem communicated? Normal questions go on the weekly problem list. Urgent issues are communicated immediately through the agreed phone, text, or messaging method. We've now planned for the imperfect weeks, and those are the weeks when the SOPs matter the most. Station 7, responsibility. All right, the role told us who participated, and it told us the overall role of this SOP. But responsibility makes sure that every important action belongs to a person. In our simple example process here that we've created, our fictitious company process here, our AP of today, the employees are responsible for sending bills and receipts to the right place. The Maven, and again, that's you, is responsible for reviewing the bills, entering them correctly, preparing the payment list, and following up on the problems. The owner is responsible for approving which bills will be paid. Don't forget, the Maven is responsible for scheduling or paying only the bills the owner has approved. So, on our worksheet, who is responsible for completing the weekly process? The Maven bookkeeper. Who checks the work? The Maven reviews the bills list before you send it to the owner. Who gives final approval? The owner. Who is told when the process is complete? The business owner receives confirmation that the approved payments were scheduled or made. And again, that comes from you. It's simple. The Maven owns the process. The owner owns the decision. Now we're going to move on to stations 8, 9, and 10, which apply whenever they strengthen the process. And that's why they're over on the side here of our form, because they don't always apply. The first 7 always apply, but sometimes numbers 8, 9, and 10 don't. All right, so, but today they do. All right, station 8 is collaboration. Even in a 5-person company, the bookkeeper may need information from other people. An employee may have made the purchase. The owner may know whether the bill should even be paid. Someone at the job site may know whether the materials arrived or maybe they didn't. A vendor may need to correct the bill. This means that everyone needs to understand their part. To remind you, the simple rules are that the employees send bills and receipts to the approved location. If the Maven has a question, it's sent to one specific person, and that person receives a clear deadline for their response. The owner returns approvals in writing. Questions stay on the problem list until someone resolves them. We do not rely on someone saying, I mentioned it. I left it on the desk. I thought the owner knew. I told you this last week. No, it has to be in writing. So on our worksheet, we write, who else interacts with this SOP? The business owner, the employees who make purchases, the bookkeeper, that's you, and the vendors when questions arise. How are handoffs managed? Bills go to one approved location. Questions go to one named person. Approvals are given in writing. Unresolved items stay on the problems list. This is where a Maven begins to see the entire client business completely differently. The accounting records showed us that the vendor was paid late, but fixing the problem requires us to understand how the information moves between the owner, the employees, the vendors, and the bookkeeper. And that is advisory. You're not simply reporting that something went wrong. You're helping the client build a system that works better so it doesn't ever happen again. Station number 9 is scale. This is where we ask, will this still work if my business grows or if my client's business grows? Now, we're not building a system for 500 employees. We're asking whether this will still work if the business goes from 5 employees to 10 or from 10 to 20. Will one bill email still work? Probably. Will the weekly schedule still work? Probably. But the business may eventually need a second person who can approve payments when the owner is away, or a rule for bills over a certain dollar amount, or a way to show which job, which customer, or which location a bill belongs to. Maybe they need a better bill payment system in general, a backup bookkeeper, and a separate approval rule for certain employees. So on our form, we write, will the process still work with more employees? Yes, as long as everyone uses the same bill location, weekly deadline, and approval process. And what might need to change as the business grows? The business may need a backup approver, clearer spending limits, better job or location tracking, and more automation. We do not need to build those systems today. Today, we're simply needing to make sure that our system does not block tomorrow's growth, the one system that we're putting in place here. All right, and station 10, which is the last of our 10 stations, is sustain. This is where we talk about innovation and technology. Could software make this easier? Yes. The business might use a dedicated bill email, a shared document folder. Maybe it's using our Maven PMP. Maybe it's using a bill payment program, or maybe their bank's bill pay. Maybe they've automated the approval reminders, the due date reminders, and a weekly recurring checklist. Could automation help? Absolutely. It might collect the bills, read the basic information, and send reminders, even flag possible duplicates and show which bills still need approval. Can AI help? Possibly. AI might notice that a bill looks unusual, that information is missing, or that the same invoice may have already been entered. But technology does not decide how the owner spends the company's money, and it does not remove the need to verify a vendor's payment information. Technology supports the process. It does not replace the controls. So on our worksheet, we write, could software improve this process? Yes, it could keep the bills, approvals, and payment status in one place. Could automation improve this process? Yes, it could send reminders, track due dates, and flag possible duplicate bills. Could AI improve this process? Yes, it could help identify missing information, unusual bills, and possible duplicates for the Maven to review. Here's the important part. Do not buy software before you understand the process. Technology can make a good process faster, absolutely for sure, but it can also make a bad process fail faster. So build the system first and then choose the technology. Now, the next segment here is test and approve. We now have stopped at all 10 stations. Are we ready to write the final SOP? Almost. First, we need to test the plan, which is the next section on our worksheet. We'll use the process for 4 weekly bill payment cycles, and during those 4 weeks, we're going to watch for bills submitted after the deadline, bills sent to the wrong place, missing receipts or information, slow owner approvals, emergency payment requests, duplicate bills, vendor complaints, confusing instructions, and steps that depend on someone remembering something without it being written down. Then we're going to fix whatever doesn't work. Maybe Tuesday is the wrong deadline. Maybe the owner needs to get the list earlier. Maybe the employees need some reminders. Maybe the payment list is too complicated. Maybe no one understands what belongs on the problem list. That is why we test. And then we score. We're actually going to grade our own standard operating procedures. Does it meet the requirements put forth by each station? If you score below a 30, scrap it, revisit it, because ideally you've got to score between a 40 and a 50. Writing down a broken process doesn't turn it into a good process. It only makes the bad process easier to repeat. Now the final reflection, which is actually the name of the last section on the worksheet, okay? Does this SOP simply document a process, or does it build a better business? Well, this SOP actually builds a better business. The original problem was a late vendor bill, but the late bill was only the symptom. The real problem was that the business had no clear system for collecting bills, reviewing bills, approving bills, paying bills, handling problems, and making sure nothing disappeared. So by stopping at all 10 Maven stations, we have now built that system. Now we know who does the work, what done looks like, where bills go, when each step happens, what is and isn't included, when the Maven contacts the owner, who owns each decision, how employees and the owner participate, how the process can grow, and how technology can make it easier. Note your key insights here as well, together with what makes this SOP a game changer, namely the avoidance of a repeated issue. We never want to get put on COD again. It's a really precarious position to be in, and it really jeopardizes the safety of a lot of businesses when this happens. So now, and only now, are we ready to switch over to our next form, which is Worksheet 3B, to write the actual step-by-step SOP. So our Worksheet 3A captures the thinking. That's the process we just went through. And Worksheet 3B captures the execution. So our client called because a vendor placed their business on COD. And we could have found the late bill and paid it and moved on like a typical just plain old bookkeeper, but that would not prevent the next bill from being missed. Instead, because we're Mavens, we found the weakness and built a better system. That is what advisory looks like in a small business. It doesn't need a boardroom or a CFO or even a 40-page report. Sometimes advisory begins with one simple question. Why did this happen, and what systems will keep it from happening again? A bookkeeper fixes the late bill, but a Maven fixes the system that allowed the bill to become late in the first place. All 10 stations, one viable SOP, one stronger small business. So our motto, systems today, freedom tomorrow, a stronger business always, definitely applies here. Now in the next video, we're going to take this complete planning worksheet and turn it into the step-by-step weekly bill payment SOP using our Worksheet 3B. But first, tell me in the comments, which of the 10 stations do you think would uncover the most problems in your clients' businesses? Let's drill down on that. And I'm going to make a guess here, a projection, that most people will say it's actually expectations, boundaries, and responsibility. When those aren't clear, all hell can break loose. I'll see you in the next video.